Today on Lekha-Jokha, we have someone who has spent over 3 decades at the very front line of mental health in India. Today's conversation is a little different. We are not talking about courtrooms or case strategy today. We are talking about something more personal, what separation and divorce actually does to you on the inside. Dr. Kalpana Srivastava is a clinical psychologist with over 35 years of experience in the field of psychology. She has worked with people under enormous pressure and so many different types of people and families. She has published over 2,200 research papers in this field. Dr. Srivastava, we are so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you very much for kind words. And I'm very happy to be here.
Without much ado, let's jump on straight to our first topic of discussion today, which is more about the shift in the mindset of the people who go through the litigation process. I request you to please shed some light on the same.
Litigation involves what all psychological factors it affects a person with. This process itself is a very demanding process because it is very engaging, demanding. It may call for a lot of upheaval, which is emotional. But however, there are two ways to look at it. For one person who is looking for the solution, where the relationship had been very problematic or a negative, this could be the process, a person looking for the positive outcome that I want to be away or part ways with the person. So this could be a desired outcome for that individual that you want to part ways with. Howsoever, it can be the process can be long run and very, I would say, demanding. But adjustment with that needs a little bit of a more emotional strength or a resilience. However, the end is that it can lead to some positive outcome that, okay, this has concluded and I'm okay with it because I don't want to face this throughout my life, this kind of a negative feelings. Another person, it could be that the moving away or parting ways with the only option. So it's a very complex process which involves both positive emotions and negative emotions. Any other processes which demand a lot of focus, attention, involvement can be draining. And when you talk about litigation, it can be further draining because it not only involves your attention and involvement, it also is full of emotions, bundle of emotions, mixed feelings. When you have a pendency of cases of so long in terms of number of cases which have not been resolved and the duration it takes to get them resolved, that doubt in the mind always lingers that am I going to get the justice out of it, whether it will reach to the desired conclusion which I'm looking at it, and lots of doubts. And believe me, nothing can be more confusing and draining and taxing as a doubtful situation. And in litigation, things are very uncertain. And because the person who sets into this has a desired goal, and both parties have a desired expectations. However, which way the solution will come forward is something which is not sure. So the uncertainty is two-pronged. One, that what I want to achieve, whether I'll get it. Two, whether the system will do the justice when I'm looking at the solutions. Doubts in terms of outcome, uncertainty, duration, emotional investment of time, investment of finances, they all can be very taxing to the person who's going through the process. Let's say when I say positive outcomes, though you are in a litigation, you want to separate, but separation is a negative feeling. You lived a life, you shared a dream, shared an expectations. And when you are choosing to have such kind of decision that I cannot live with this person anymore, that is also have come to that particular stage of life when you have gone through a lot of emotional upheaval. And it can be true for both the parties. Even though you're looking at parting ways with each other, the one thing which is happening here is that there's a severing of the ties. That severing of the ties, which are emotional ties, which is a tie of a relationship, tie of a thought process, tie of common dreams which have been shared, tie of the common life which has been together, or the life which has been planned. So any kind of a disembarkment onto the process when you have been engaged with on a longer duration can be painful. So the process is not very happy throughout.
Not happy. Yes.
Yeah, I think you're speaking right out of your heart, looking at people whom you have dealt with. I think
Yes.
you would have probably seen a lot of people who are so anxious, so disappointed because the expectations are so very different than the reality.
Don't get the results which you're looking at. That is something which an uncertainty. Cannot plan anything till the
Yes.
So
process
true.
ends.
So
And
true.
Yes.
whatever you have just told us, it was all about adults. And now we want to come to the children who are caught in this crossfire. And they are also very badly affected, isn't it? Could you please shed some light on the children who are facing this type of conflict with that is going on between their parents? If you could just
Very aptly
take
you
us.
asked. And when you handle children, it's a very numbing experience for children. I must say that the child has, for child, both parents make a home. Family is a unit for a child. When a mother, father, and the child, and a brother and a sister. It is the immediate family and the joint family. But family means mother and father for child. And when the children are there as a part of the system of a litigation, when it happens, obviously, if the children are there, they're going to be affected by this because in the heart, no child wants that. This is the most comfortable situation when child is in the
Also,
house and finds there a protection offered by both the parents, not one. That is why the trauma of the children who are being either brought up by one single parent or have been in the conflicted family is a different kind of a trauma. It's a trauma where sometimes it is so experientially difficult for a child to even absorb that they go deranged. Sometimes it can be so disturbing that they have no idea where to seek support and may suffer some lot of emotional problems. So children have their own set of worries and I would say the stories around the particular process of litigation. If the family is disturbed, each member of the family of that unit is affected.
mm,
And children being children from both the parents are affected the most. So very often you see them having a decline in performance academically, either getting engaged with something which is untoward, either more of a gaming, any kind of behavioral addictions, and may have a lot of anxiety and depression. The parents only bring them for our help. That me and my partner or my husband are not getting along well. I'm a single mother. I'm looking after this. The hindsight of it, when you take a family into consideration or decide to go for the family, it is a responsible decision. This should be given due cognizance whether you are mentally ready to bring the existence into this world who you are not catered or not even thought about that will go through the process of this kind of a disharmony. Now, in urbanization has changed a lot of social fabric and the moral fabric in the society. Gone are the days there used to be support system. Now the support system in the nuclear family is not so strong. So for children, the home becomes the homeless land where you don't find the support, the security. And secondly, which way to go, which parent to choose.
mm,
For him or her, it is mother and father,
right.
not that either one of them, either mother or father. That's a tough decision which children have to take. And they're forced to take a decision. For having an understanding that you meet for a certain period with this parent and when you grow adult, you can decide to go where. How a child
Right.
can decide when he grows an adult that I've been staying with my mother, now I'm moved to my father. That's also very demanding emotionally to pose such a decision that right now your custody is with mother and later on you can take the call. Because I believe that their process, children being affected by this, there's a lot of grieving process, grief of losing the parent, actually.
So I think
Uh,
one thing that we would like to tell everybody is that if it's a very conflict that the parents are having, do not get into the mindset of separation. I think it's time for us to ignore small things, make relationship.
I would like to say this thing that see the relationship, to be in the relationship, to maintain the relationship, Is a process. It's a mutually
Right.
acceptable process. It's not a
Right.
one-sided. I agree that if your relationship very toxic and it is difficult to stay together, it's better to part ways with. Second is if there's a scope that one can find a solution, one should always attempt that than to lose to the permanent, I would say, severing the ties. Third thing, which is very important, is don't take big decision for small things that if things are repairable, but that's a very subjective decision that needs a lot of mindset.
One thing that we all cannot ignore is we live in a society. I think the stigma of separation or divorce, if it does happen in 3, 4, 5 years, whatever time it takes, I think is another thing to live with, isn't it, during the process?
Societal stigma, yes. Howsoever educated or urbanized society we may be in, there is some kind of a little bit of understanding which is evolving around the issue. The challenge is to the person. And I
Right.
would say there could be a stigma more, but the society perceives men to be responsible for making the marriage work. If the marriage breaks, it is that lady must have done something, and it is the responsibility of a lady to make it work. It's a rather bilateral process. And
True.
however, having said that, there are a couple of factors. For say, for example, if the man is separated, finding an alliance which is a next alliance may be easier, but if women is separated, if the lady is separated, for finding the next alliance, maybe and there could be a lot of judgment, judging the person as to why it happened, what happened. So the society does have a framework to operate on. It does. But at the same time, when you take the decision that I don't want to be within this marriage context and I want to really part ways with a lady or a man or a woman, they have their made up their mind that I don't want to, I cannot adjust. So that resilience has to be, that is your respect to self. I always believe that others will view the way you view yourself.
Right.
You
True.
can change the narrative by looking at yourself the way you want others to look at you. You don't have to pity yourself. What is required is accepting the self. It is your self acceptance which is very important.
True.
You think others will accept you first you to accept yourself. So one has to be very, it's fair, it's a tough decision, it's a tight rope of adjustment in terms of in the society, and you need a lot of support. And from this parents, from the near dear ones, from if you have siblings from them, either partners, see both men also go through their own deal. I wouldn't say that
Right.
for them it is easy because having said that, the both parties suffer emotionally. But what matters here is that what is the reason of separation?
Right.
What is it? That is very important. That's a defining criteria of your wellness and mental health or your illness. Because if you think that you've taken a right decision because something which is non-negotiable, then your reasons are well in place. Then you may not
Right.
feel so. You may feel that fine, this was the alternative available. So there are a couple of very many factors into it. Having said that, yes, there is a society which looks at the situation which is not so comfortable.
And the way we have circled back from society to personal decision making makes me once again seek your opinion on how to manage the person, the individual, because you talked about ownership and responsibility. Your advice on how people can take better decisions, because as you rightly put, it's a high conflict and high turmoil and high ups and downs type of a situation. So, in that, how to stay sane and how to manage oneself as well as managing the other stakeholders involved in this entire.
It's a
True.
tough deal. And when you go on deciding this, always have realistic checkpoints. Everybody knows this is going to be the trajectory of his litigation and a separation. But having a reality checkpoint is that, yes, if I am taking this opinion, I have to be very fully aware that I'm going to march on the path which will be full of certain question marks, hurdles. There'll be a lot of financial aspects involved into a process. Two, there could be duration which you'll not be able to take a call as to what is required to be done. So a little bit of uncertainty. Three, have a self-esteem in place. Look at yourself. The decision you have taken is at that particular point of time was the right decision. And your mindset should be this, that, yeah, this is what is then at that moment, given the circumstance, given the situation, was the most justifiable decision. This is a question mark on decision making all the time, whether you are doing the right decision or not. So one has to be a little firm on this. Three things which is important is the self care, the loneliness, that disappointments, this questioning that why the others are doing the way they're doing. This question is, for me, it is redundant. I'll place this question into perspective. The why are you saying so? These questions make you feel a little more burdensome because we cannot control. How others are doing, you can't control. What you can control is what you
Yourself.
can do about it. So instead of questioning why other person is doing this, the question should be that, okay, let him or her be the way he or she is. What should I do about this? Or should I move ahead and think of what is required to be done? So this why is, I would say, is a waste of time. What should be done is a right engagement. So having that clarity, that decision making, that self care, a little bit of support system is very much required to handle such a process. Ultimately, it is you who's deciding. So a little bit of preserving that, looking after yourself, keeping your calm, maintaining your cool. If need to speak to a therapist, please do. It is, it will only help you transact the process. And you don't need somebody, a close confidant, a friend, you can really pour your heart out and talk to. Who can be that? A therapist who is not subjective, can looks at objective and guides you right.
Judgmental. So true. I think
Exactly.
these are all the arsenals that I have been using for
Mm.
me to keep myself abreast and keep going and stay positive in life.
I think
think
all our viewers can use something or the other from this very enriching and very comprehensive discussion. So we would like to thank you so much. And we are really grateful and looking forward to our viewers and listeners, their comments and what they think about this.
I would just like to say it was more enlightening, more opening of your eyes to understand, to be more well guarded, taking the right decision at the right time, not looking back and rejudging yourself or questioning whether the decisions was right or wrong, and finding the right path to move on in life. Once again, thank you so much for being on our program. It was an honor, pleasure to hear from you. Hope all our viewers get a lot of information, helps them to move ahead in life. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Take care.
friends.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank you.